Okay, so you want to own a Target. You walk in on a Saturday, you grab detergent, paper towels, a birthday card, maybe a throw pillow you were not planning to buy 6 minutes earlier, and somewhere in the back of your mind you think, whoever owns this place has figured life out. The parking lot is full, the carts are full, the bags are never just one bag. And unlike a specialty retailer that lives or dies on a single category, this place sells toothpaste, toys, groceries, leggings, lamps, and seasonal nonsense you did not know you wanted until you were already holding it. You do that math quickly enough, and the idea sounds irresistible. But here's the part nobody tells you when you are standing under those red signs. You cannot actually go out and buy a Target franchise. There is no Target store package for individual operators, no franchise disclosure document for you to sign, no suburban box you can finance and run as your own. What exists instead is a corporation with 995 stores as of January 31, 2026, operating essentially as one U.S. segment and producing $104.78 billion in net sales in fiscal 2025. So someone is obviously making money here. The real question is who and how this machine works from the inside. To understand that, we need to follow the money, starting not with a single latte this time, but with a single Target basket. When Target reports its numbers, the business looks simple until you read it carefully. In fiscal 2025, merchandise sales were $102.717 billion. Advertising revenue, primarily from Roundel, added $915 million. Credit card profit sharing contributed another $522 million, and a final $626 million came from other sources, including Target Plus marketplace commissions, Target Circle 360 membership revenue, shipped membership and service revenue, rental income, and other miscellaneous items. That means roughly 98% of the company's revenue still comes from moving physical goods, but the premium layer sitting on top of that goods business matters far more than its size initially suggests. Advertising, membership, marketplace commissions, and card economics do not have to haul a sofa into your trunk or stock a gallon of milk in a cooler. They sit on top of the store engine and improve the economics of the whole network. That is important because Target is not just a place that sells inventory. It is a place that converts physical traffic into digital traffic into loyalty, loyalty into data, data into ad inventory, and ad inventory into higher quality revenue. More on that in a minute. The key thing to understand right now is this. The merchandise is not the whole product. The convenience architecture around the merchandise is. Take a hypothetical $100 Target purchase. Most people assume most of that $100 is paying for the physical goods in the bag. That is directionally true, but it misses the more interesting point. In fiscal 2025, Target's total cost of sales was about 72.1% of net sales. Selling, general, and administrative expense ran about 20.6%. Depreciation and amortization added another 2.5%. What remained as operating income was about 4.9 cents on the dollar. In other words, on a blended corporate basis, a $100 Target basket roughly translates into about $72 going to merchandise and the supply chain and fulfillment system behind it. About $20.60 going to store labor, administration, occupancy, marketing, and operating overhead, about $2.50 going to the wearing down of buildings, fixtures, and equipment, and only about $4.90 remaining as operating profit before interest and taxes. That sounds thin until you remember two things. First, the scale is enormous. Second, the basket is not the real unit of advantage. The network is. A retailer at Target size does not win because one basket is magical. It wins because millions of baskets move through one integrated system of stores, pickup counters, apps, cards, supply chain facilities, and delivery options that have already been paid for. Because customers are not paying only for laundry detergent, cereal, or face wash. They are paying for the collapse of 15 errands into one decision. Think about what a good Target trip really does. It lets a parent replace the kid's socks, grab groceries, restock shampoo, buy wrapping paper, and leave with a lamp they did not know they needed, all in one stop. That is not ordinary retail. That is time compression. Target itself describes the promise as style, design, and value, and more than 30 million guests shop its stores each week. The typical store averages around 125,000 square feet. The chain reaches most Americans within about 10 miles of a location, and the company is increasingly building larger formats because stores are no longer just showrooms for shelves. They are fulfillment infrastructure. So when someone says Target is a discount retailer, that is only partially true. Discount tells you where the prices sit relative to department stores. It does not tell you why people come back. People come back because the trip feels efficient and slightly aspirational at the same time. It feels like checking chores off a list without giving up the possibility of finding something fun. That is a rarer economic proposition than it sounds. And then there is the pricing structure itself, because Target does not try to win the way Walmart wins. Walmart wants to be associated with price leadership at scale. Amazon wants to remove the trip entirely and let logistics do the selling. Target wants the basket to feel smart. That is different. The company's own brand portfolio now includes more than 40 brands producing more than $30 billion in annual revenue, or roughly 1/3 of annual sales. That matters because private labels like Good & Gather, Up & Up, Threshold, Cat & Jack, and dozens of others give Target a way to shape opening price points, margin mix, and aesthetic differentiation at the same time. In March 2026, the company cut prices on more than 3,000 spring products, most of them by 5% to 20%, on top of thousands of price reductions it had already made in 2025. Layer on Target Circle deals and the Target Circle card's 5% discount on nearly all purchases, and the basket begins to feel less like a pure price comparison exercise, and more like a managed perception of value. That is the trick. Target does not need to be the absolute cheapest on every SKU. It needs the total trip to feel like you got more style, more convenience, and enough savings that checking one more website would not have been worth the effort. Now let's talk about where these stores actually sit, because location for a company like this is not just real estate. It is logistics. As of January 31, 2026, Target had 1,995 stores and 70 supply chain facilities totaling 72.9 million square feet. Of those stores, 546 were owned, 288 were leased, and 161 were owned buildings on leased land. More than 170 stores are small format locations, often used in dense urban areas and near college campuses, while the company's newer large format stores are generally around 148,000 to 150,000 square feet and designed with bigger back rooms specifically to support order pickup, drive up, same-day delivery, and ship from store. That real estate mix tells you something important. A Target location is not just a box for selling products off shelves. It is a node in a distribution graph. The front end is a shopping experience. The back end is a low-latency inventory position close to households. The reason Target keeps opening and remodeling stores is not just that stores produce store sales. It is that stores add horsepower, in the company's own phrasing, to the digital model too. Build one more well-placed store, and you are not only adding square footage, you are improving pickup radius, same-day eligibility, ship-from-store economics, and customer trust in a local market all at once. That brings us to the control question. Why does this company run as a tightly integrated system instead of letting independent operators take a piece of the brand? The answer, based on Target's own disclosures, is that the store is now inseparable from the omnichannel operating model. More than 97% of total merchandise sales in each of the last 3 years were fulfilled by stores. The company also says nearly all of its sales, including digital, were powered by stores last year. Once you understand that, a franchise-like model makes less and less sense. If a Target store were just 4 walls and cash registers, you could imagine handing it to an independent operator. But that is not what a Target store is anymore. It is in-store retail, order pickup, drive up, same-day delivery staging, brown box shipping capacity, returns, inventory accuracy, app promise reliability, and local brand presence at the same time. The moment those functions are split across hundreds or thousands of independent owners, with different cost pressures and different standards, the system stops behaving like one company. So while Target does not frame this as a philosophical anti-franchise speech, the structure of its business strongly implies the same conclusion. Control is not a preference here. It is the product. Here is what a day inside that system actually looks like. It does not have Starbucks' 7 a.m. espresso rush, but it has its own rhythm. There is the quick weekday essentials trip. There is the pre-work or lunch break pickup. There is the after-school or after-office top-up order. And then there is the weekend stock-up run, when the basket gets heavy and the store starts behaving more like a household reset button than a retailer. Order pickup is free and designed to be ready within a couple of hours. Drive Up removes the store walk almost entirely. Same-day delivery now reaches 80% of the U.S. in more than 5,000 cities, and next-day delivery has been expanded to 60% of the U.S. population, while 2-day shipping reaches 99%. In some periods, the company has fulfilled almost 80% of all online orders within 1 day, and about 80% of same-day deliveries have arrived in 3 hours or less. That means the operational challenge is not just sell the item. It is have the item, know where it is, promise it accurately, pick it quickly, and move it through the right channel at the right cost. A Target that looks calm from the aisle can still be running a dense choreography of pickers, stalkers, drivers, carts, handoffs, staging areas, and routing decisions behind the walls. And because all of that choreography depends on people, labor becomes one of the central economic facts of the business. Target had about 415,000 team members in 2025. The company says workforce costs are its largest operating expense. It's U.S. Hourly starting wage range is $15 to $24 depending on role and market, and the average hourly wage of frontline team members is now above $18.50. Benefits start on day one for many offerings, and Target continues to emphasize healthcare access, tuition-free education assistance, discounts, and retirement support. That is not philanthropic decoration, it is operating infrastructure. A store cannot fulfill pickup orders accurately if the backroom is understaffed. Drive-up does not feel magical if the wait time slips. Shelves do not feel abundant if on-shelf availability breaks down. This is one of the reasons big box retail is a much harder business than it appears from the parking lot. At Target scale, the labor question is never just how much are wages. It is how much staffing is required to keep the promise of convenience from collapsing. And because the company is selling reliability as much as product, the answer is almost always more than the spreadsheet wants. Now for the most interesting part of the whole machine, and it has very little to do with a red cart rolling down an aisle. Target Circle, the free loyalty program, and Target Circle 360, the paid membership tier, are not just engagement tools. They are traffic shaping, discount routing, and cash flow mechanisms. Circle 360 costs $99 a year or $10.99 a month, offers unlimited same-day delivery on qualifying orders, faster shipping benefits, added return flexibility, and access to same-day delivery from more than 100 other retailers and grocers across Shipt's network without price markups. Since the relaunch of Target Circle in 2024, the company says more than 13 million new members joined the program. And then there is the balance sheet effect. At January 31, 2026, Target was carrying a gift card liability of $1.197 billion. The company recognizes breakage over time when historical redemption patterns indicate some balances will never be spent. Add to that $522 million of 2025 credit card profit-sharing income, and you start to see the deeper architecture. Loyalty encourages repeat trips. Card usage lowers friction and increases attachment to the ecosystem. Membership improves same-day economics and customer retention. Gift cards put customer cash onto the balance sheet before the underlying purchase is completed. This is not merely marketing. It is a carefully layered retail finance system that makes the core merchandise engine more durable. Now let us talk about what happens when things go wrong, because this business is not as stable as a full parking lot makes it look. In fiscal 2025, comparable sales fell 2.6% and net sales were down 1.7%. Gross margin also slipped from 28% to 27.9%, with Target citing higher markdowns, purchase order cancellation costs, and pressure from category mix, partially offset by lower shrink and growth in advertising and other revenues. That tells you exactly where the danger is. Target is unusually strong when consumers are willing to mix essentials with discretionary categories like home, decor, apparel, beauty, and seasonal discovery. But when the customer gets stressed, the first thing to disappear is often the fun part of the basket. At the same time, the competitive environment keeps getting faster and harsher. Walmart expanded 30-minute orderless delivery to 33 U.S. markets in May 2026. Amazon rolled out 1-hour and 3-hour delivery in more U.S. cities in March 2026. So the pressure on Target now comes from both sides: value pressure from lower-price competitors and speed pressure from logistics-heavy competitors. The encouraging part is that the company's first quarter of 2026 showed a meaningful rebound, with net sales up 6.7%, comparable sales up 5.6%, digital sales up 8.9%, same-day delivery up more than 27%, and non-merchandise sales up nearly 25%. But a rebound quarter is not the same thing as permanent escape velocity. It simply means the machine still responds when merchandising, value, and convenience are all aligned at the same time. So what does one Target actually generate? That is harder to answer cleanly than it was with Starbucks, because Target's economics live at the network level, not at the level of one isolated box. If you divide full year 2025 net sales by 1,095 stores, you get a rough average of about $52. $5 million in net sales per store equivalent. But even that number is blurry, because digital, advertising, membership revenue, credit card profit sharing, and marketplace economics all flow through a store-enabled network, rather than a pure store P&L. That is exactly the point. An optimistic version of this business says the 2026 strategy works, new stores and remodels improve traffic, same-day fulfillment keeps growing, Roundel scales, Target Plus expands, and the company gets back to consistent sales growth while lifting margin quality. A more realistic version says some discretionary categories stay soft, markdown pressure returns, tariff and import costs remain volatile, and Walmart and Amazon keep shrinking the window in which convenience can be differentiated. Both versions can be true at different times. What Target is really trying to own is not a product category. It is the consumer's default household operating system. And if you want exposure to that system, the most direct path is not buying a franchise, but buying shares of Target stock. Owning real estate that benefits from its presence, supplying the company as a brand partner, or participating in its invite-only Target Plus marketplace. The company plans to open more than 30 new stores in 2026, invest about $5 billion this year, and add more than 300 stores by 2035. So the machine is still being built. The last thing to understand is the simplest. Target is not really in the cheap stuff business. It is in the errand compression business. It takes a long list of small domestic problems and turns them into one manageable trip, one manageable app, one manageable habit. And that is why the economics work. Build the place people trust to solve ordinary life quickly, repeatedly, and with just enough style that the solution feels better than the chore itself. And you do not just sell products. You build a business people fold into their routine.